Princess Zelda is a pretty important character. I mean, the whole flippin' series is named after her. But have you noticed that she doesn't sound like she used to? Well, okay, of course you noticed. I mean, she speaks full sentences in Breath of the Wild.
This one here is called the Silent Princess. It's a rare, endangered species.
But how did Nintendo go from this to this?
Wake up, Link.
And what about all of the drama that took place in these last 20 years? Because, let me tell you, Nintendo have recast and re-recorded this one character's voice a lot of times. Let us answer the question of why Zelda's voice doesn't sound like it used to. So, to be clear, as usual, I'm not talking about any of the cartoons, anime, or non-Nintendo produced games. Sorry, Philips CDI, you're getting ignored this time. So in that case, the story of Zelda's voice begins in the year 1998 with the game Ocarina of Time. For the first time, Nintendo wanted their characters to make human noises rather than just beeping lifelessly. For Link, they hired a pretty famous duo of voice actors to play the two different iterations of the character. However, for the rest of the cast, Nintendo didn't really care about spending a lot of money on big names. Case in point, the person picked to play Princess Zelda, the titular character, was voice actress Jun Mizusawa, who at the time had only been in about 4 or 5 video games. That was pretty much it. Of course, I don't think she's a bad actress, just take a listen to her portrayal of Princess Zelda. But here's the catch. Jun Mizusawa doesn't just voice the princess. She's actually responsible for almost every female character in the game. Malon, Saria, and Princess Ruto. They are all voiced by Jun Mizusawa. That's quite a bit of responsibility for anyone to take on, let alone a newcomer to voice acting. Now, after Ocarina of Time, Nintendo began work on the game's sequel, Majora's Mask. And again, Jun Mizusawa appears very briefly as the princess, along with a smattering of side characters. However, there's no evidence that Mizusawa herself came back to the recording studio to record any new voice lines. More likely, Nintendo just reused the audio they had recorded for Ocarina of Time. It's not just Majora's Mask where you can hear her voice though. Super Smash Bros. Melee, Brawl, Wii U, and 3DS all feature Jun Mizusawa as the voice of Princess Zelda. However, after Majora's Mask, things began changing pretty rapidly. Ooh. For the sequel, The Wind Waker, the Zelda team decided to completely change up the style of the series, from stoic and serious to cartoony and colourful. In fact, the iteration of Princess Zelda from this game has come to be known as Toon Zelda over time. And likely because of this shift in style, Nintendo decided to recast almost every returning character, which includes Princess Zelda. So who would take over Jun Mizusawa's role? The person picked was a voice actress by the name of Hikari Tachibana. Now, Nintendo haven't ever discussed why they picked Tachibana, but I do have a personal theory. At the time, Tachibana's most famous role by far was in the hugely popular dating sim Tokimeki Memorial 2. She played a character called Miho Shirayuki, who Wikipedia describes as a polite, sweet girl who loves frogs. Well, Princess Zelda is definitely meant to come across as polite and sweet, and as for frogs...
Ta-da! You'd be a perfect candidate for the study. Go on. Taste it.
So, if Nintendo were looking for a new voice actress to fill Princess Zelda's role, and they were looking through the cast list of Tokimeki Memorial 2, could it be that they noticed quite a lot in common between the princess and this character? It's impossible to say for sure, but regardless, Hikari Tachibana was cast as the princess. And here's how she sounds in The Wind Waker. In recent years, people have really come around to the visual style of Wind Waker, but at the time, there was quite a bit of backlash. People just couldn't get used to this new, cartoony-looking Zelda game. So Nintendo did a 180, threw out everything cartoony, and went fully in on serious, dark, and moody for their next Zelda game, Twilight Princess. It was very much a return to the style of Ocarina of Time, and so, when discussions began about who should voice the princess, an interesting answer was reached. Bring back Jun Mizusawa! After all, everyone loved Princess Zelda in Ocarina of Time, so who better was there to play the role once more in Twilight Princess? After Twilight Princess, Nintendo developed 2 different Zelda games for the DS, and both of them used the art style of Wind Waker. In other words, Toon Zelda made her return. For the first game, Phantom Hourglass, Hikari Tachibana was asked to return to the role, which makes a lot of sense. She was, after all, the voice of Toon Zelda for a lot of people out there. But strangely, the second of these 2 games, despite featuring Toon Zelda, does not feature the voice of Hikari Tachibana. No, instead the role was taken over by seasoned voice actress Akane Omae. I don't know why, but Link was recast at the same time. It's a bit of a mystery. Anyway, here's what Princess Zelda sounds like in the game. However, only 1 year after Spirit Tracks' release, Akane Omae suddenly announced, completely out of the blue, that she was retiring as a voice actress. The reason why? Well, it wasn't health related, in case you're worried. No, she explained on her blog that she wanted to experience other jobs. That was it. And thus, Akane Omae's span as Princess Zelda was extremely short-lived. Just 1 game. After that, the Zelda team started work on the next big home console Zelda game. After the dark and serious Twilight Princess, they figured they'd lighten things up a bit, with the game that would eventually become Skyward Sword. Now granted, it's no Wind Waker level of cartooniness, but the characters do smile, which makes a change from Twilight Princess. And for this game, Nintendo decided to hire a completely new voice for Princess Zelda. The person chosen was Yu Shimamura. Shimamura had appeared in quite a few anime over the last 3 years, although a lot of that was as background characters. Still, Skyward Sword presented an interesting challenge for Shimamura. For a pretty long time, the producer of the Zelda series, Eiji Aonuma, had said this: everyone would be speaking Hylian, so even if you heard them speak, you wouldn't understand them. Previously, this hadn't really been an issue, because the characters didn't speak other than grunting. But for the first time in the series' history, Zelda was going to speak in this new game. Or rather, sing. Take a listen to Yu Shimamura's performance. Right, so before we get back to the last big home console games, there's a few spin-offs we need to quickly rattle through. Some of this was pretty surprising when I found it out. First off, there's the 3DS game A Link Between Worlds. For this, Zelda's voice actress was the very prolific Ayumi Fujimura. She had been in countless anime, and quite a lot of video games too. But the reason Nintendo knew about her is that she had previously provided the voice of Fi from Skyward Sword just a few years ago. And so, for this 3DS spin-off, rather than bringing back Yu Shimamura, who was the home console voice of Zelda, they decided to pick Ayumi Fujimura, aka Fi. Here's how she sounds in the game. Hey. Then, the next spin-off is Hyrule Warriors. For this, the Zelda team nicked one of Fire Emblem's voice actresses, Saori Seto. Seto had voiced Severa and Anna in Fire Emblem Awakening just a couple of years back, and she would go on to work with the Fire Emblem team many more times in the future. But in Hyrule Warriors, she voiced Princess Zelda. Here's what that sounds like. Now, While these spin-offs were in development, a small team at Nintendo were experimenting with how the Zelda series should change after Skyward Sword. Eventually, they ended up with the radical new open-world Breath of the Wild. And it wasn't just the gameplay that was a huge shift from older games. Eiji Aonuma changed his mind. For the first time, a Zelda game would have full voice acting in a language that players could actually understand. Japanese for the original version, and then localized dubs produced for the rest of the world. Originally, the game was only going to feature voice acting in the most important cutscenes, but they figured that would be kind of weird and jarring, so eventually every cutscene in the game was given full voice acting. And for Princess Zelda, Yu Shimamura was brought back after Skyward Sword to reprise her role as the princess. "Is it really okay for me to talk?" was the very first question Shimamura asked. She was told that this was all part of the team's challenge to rethink the conventions of the Zelda series. But the recording sessions for the game were really unusual, to say the least. Sometimes, long after a line had been recorded and mixed and put into the game, someone would suggest a better way of wording it, and so they would come back to the recording studio and re-record the scene, even long after it was already done. Another example is the scene at the ceremony. Yu Shimamura didn't really think the lines written conveyed Zelda's personality or her motivations and feelings, so she herself suggested a whole new script. It was a really collaborative process. As Shimamura herself explained, "It kind of felt like we were all just trying different things out, searching for the best way. And the end result was really good. Dare I say, iconic." Check out some of the Japanese cutscenes. There's subtitles at the bottom.
あなたはその背中の剣を使いこなせていますか。その剣に宿るという内なる声、それが聞こえているのですか。今日は付き添わなくてよいと伝えたはずです。いくら国王の命令であっても、当の私が護衛など必要ないと言っているのです。ついてこないでください。どうしてこんなことに。私のせいです。私が今までしてきたことは何の役にも立たなかった。やっぱり私は。
However, even with the Japanese voices recorded, the work still wasn't done. The game needed 7 other language dubs for various countries around the world. I'm gonna focus on the English dub because that's the one I know best, but if you have information about the others, let me know in the comments. So let me introduce you to Patricia Summerset. She was a voice actress from Canada who one day showed up to an audition for Nintendo for some game they were working on. That's right, not only did Summerset not know what the game was or what series it was from, she wasn't even told who the characters she was auditioning for were. The whole thing was extremely secretive. And if that wasn't difficult enough, Zelda was a character out of Patricia Summerset's comfort zone. "I have a low voice," she explains, "so that lends to older or stronger female characters. It's actually a bit harder for me to play weak, lighter characters." She's gone on the record before to say that she didn't think she'd get the role at all. But to her surprise, Nintendo liked her performance, and her voice ended up in the game. If you've seen any English trailers for Breath of the Wild, you've definitely heard her voice.
Wake up, Link.
But here's a few clips anyway.
Is that what I think it is? Look at this. I don't believe it, but I actually caught one. This delicacy is known to have very, very potent effects under the proper circumstances. Ta-da! It's all my fault. Our only hope for defeating Ganon is lost, all because I couldn't harness this cursed power. So I really am just a failure. I left them all to die.
Now, it kinda has to be noted that there was definitely some negative response to this new voice for Zelda. The accent in particular sounds fine to Americans and Canadians, but to British people, it sounds kinda off. Still, accents aside, hearing Princess Zelda, a character who'd never spoken before, talk in full English sentences was always going to be controversial. And to be frank, Patricia Summerset received a lot of unfair criticism and hate from fans. I don't think that's fair at all. Still, on a lighter note, both Yu Shimamura and Patricia Summerset have, at least so far, continued to reprise their roles as the titular princess. You can hear a very different side to the character in the game's Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. And with Breath of the Wild sequel still presumably in development, I doubt it'll be too long until they come back to the recording studio once more. Hey, I've talked before about why Link's voice has changed so much, so if you haven't seen that video, it's on screen right now. And follow me on Twitter @ThomasGdocs if you want to see what I'm up to. I'll see you next week. Bye.